Okay. Welcome in, everybody. We're going to get started here in just a moment. There we go. All right. Where's everybody coming from? Good morning. Late morning, I guess. All right. Let's see. Tell me where in the world you all are tuning in from. I love doing that at the beginning. You guys know it's always cool to see the cities and states, countries that you're all coming from. We got Ogden, Utah. Hilda's going to her bed. She usually likes the sunny spot over there, but she's going to her bed. Okay. Arizona, Uruguay, Cincinnati, Omaha, Atlanta, London, New Hampshire, Knoxville. Wow. Seattle, Cleveland, Beloit, Myrtle Beach, and Athens. Let me turn my phone off. France, Chicago, Seattle. It's raining. And there's France and Quebec. Bianca from New Zealand tuning in. And the UK, Rhode Island. All right. It's good to see everybody. Good morning. All right. Well, we're going to get started here in a little bit. Hi, I'm Adam Ellenboss from NightLight Astrology, and today I'm going live to take your questions and to do some birth chart readings. I am doing this because I love all of you, and it's fun to do it. And we're in the final days of our Kickstarter campaign, and we're going to see if we can't drum up some support so we can cross the finish line in the next 3 days. We have 3 days left in our annual Kickstarter campaign. Right now, we have 1,195 backers. We need 1,937. And so let's do a little math. 1,937 minus 1,196. Thank you, whoever just did that. That was nice. That leaves us with 741 backers that we need between now and New Year's Eve. Can we get there? I think so. I think we can. I think we can do it. Last year, on the date of December 29th, we were at 1,392 backers. Just to give you an idea for the pace we kept last year to make it to 1,936 backers. By the end of this day last year, we were at 1,392 backers. And today we are at 1,196 backers. So we're a couple hundred now behind the pace, which is concerning. That means that we need to do all that we can to drum up support today, tomorrow, and on Tuesday into New Year's Eve. So I'm going to tell you how you can support the channel, and I'm going to tell you about the rewards that are available when you support the channel, and then we're going to do some Q&A. After the Q&A, I will plug the Kickstarter again, and then after that, we will do some live readings, maybe 3 or 4 live readings. And I hope that all of you will find this educational and interesting. I will tell you how you can submit your information for birth chart readings so that you know how to do that a little bit later in the program. And in the meantime, let me tell you about the Kickstarter. So this Kickstarter campaign is something I have been doing for 11 years. This is the 11th annual Kickstarter campaign. I want to tell you guys that you can find the link in the live stream chat box right now. I just put it in to go over and donate. Every donation counts: $5, $10, $15. We also have a variety of rewards I'll tell you about in a minute. When you pitch in, you are supporting the production of 5-day-a-week free content year-round. So this is what I do for a living. This is how I earn my living. And rather than setting up subscriptions and paywalls, what I like to do is keep it open and accessible, and then just ask a small portion of the 73,000 subscribers to pitch in and support the channel. Not only that, but I try to make sure that when you do so, there are really good, solid rewards that you can get for some exclusive content, or you can come study with us at greatly discounted rates. That not only supports me and my family, this is literally how I earn my living. So if you value the content, I would say consider supporting the astrologer that you enjoy, or the astrologers, whatever astrologers you listen to. They have different ways of monetizing their content. And if you appreciate all the work that goes into it, a $5 donation is a really simple thing that can add up and be part of a great way to earn a living as an astrologer. So anyway, I say that so that you'll consider donating if you haven't yet. And then also, we support this Kickstarter supports a variety of other things. For example, the Kickstarter campaign is also a big part of how I support a staff of 11 people that help run our school and make it what it is. Our school is not a bunch of recordings that you listen to and that's it. I teach every class live. Every class. For 15 years, I've never not taught a live class. All of the classes are recorded so you can follow along with them at your own pace if you can't make it live, but I teach those classes live. We also have live tutors and TAs and course directors that are there and host study sessions, breakout study sessions, tutoring sessions. They staff a question and answer forum that's always there. They answer within 24 hours. We like to keep astrology something that is, we want to be a living lineage, which means that I want to teach until I'm like 75 years old. That's my goal. Maybe that'll change as I get older. I don't know. But right now, my goal is to teach astrology year in and year out and be live for all of those teachings, never a correspondence course, until I'm 75. And I want to have a staff of people that make the programs amazing. And a great way to do that, and to make all of the programs super affordable for people of all income levels, so that as a business, we can do well, I can earn a living, and we can also make sure that there are really affordable price points across all of our programs. The Kickstarter is a big part of how we do that. So my wife likes to say it feeds two birds with one hand, rather than it kills two birds with one stone. It's a much more like charitable, compassionate way of saying it. Feed two birds with one hand. So this Kickstarter feeds multiple birds with one hand. And so we ask that a small amount of the 73,000 subscribers, if we get to 2,000 of those 73,000 this year, we'll have met our goal. If we get to 1,937, we'll have technically met our goal, because we'll have done one better than we did last year. And we have 12,000 more subscribers than we did last year. So the idea is to grow the support and then to use what we get back to support careers in astrology. There are many people on our staff whose dream it was to do something in astrology and are getting to live more of their life doing astrology, because I can afford to pay them, and I can afford to pay them because the Kickstarter is a big part of the success of the company, which then goes right back into creating affordable reading services, so that rather than just training astrologers, we can also provide some really talented astrologers with a platform through which to build their careers. Which is why I can use my YouTube channel to bring in people like Alex and Dana, who are promising alumni from my programs, or Alexandra and Whitney, promising alumni from the programs, and give them a place to showcase their voice and their talents and their abilities, because it's hard to build a career as an astrologer. So the vision of NightLight is really, I think of it as a community-based vision, one that's rooted in generosity, and one that is about building the success of other people and astrologers. And when you come past just my channel and enter into our educational community, it's fantastic. So I can't encourage you enough, if you're on the fence about it, to come join us. When you get these class passes through the Kickstarter, of course, you can join us for the year 1 program, the year 2 program, the year 3 program, the Horary program. People take them at different paces, by the way. Those class passes are renewable anytime you want in 2025 or beyond, so you can keep them and use them, stretch them out over a couple of years. Most people start with our year 1 program, and then as they're building past our year 1 program, then year 2, year 3, and Horary can be taken in any order that you want, and they can also be overlapped with each other and taken simultaneously, just depending on how much bandwidth you have. Other people get class passes and they take it very slowly, and if you want help deciding the best course through our programs for you personally, we also spend lots of time with people helping them craft individual plans through email. We do that all the time. Anyway, so I'm going to take you over to the Kickstarter right now, and here is the link one more time in the live stream. When you go over to the Kickstarter campaign, you're going to see the rewards that are available. I will explain them to you. And literally, you can also donate without a reward for just $5, $10. The backer number total is as important to us as the financial total. They're both important pieces of the puzzle. We know if we get to the backer total, we'll end probably in the range that we need financially for the year ahead, which is not, by the way, our numbers every year are meant to sustain what we're doing and maybe slightly grow our bottom line, right? Our business model is not rooted in unending expansion of wealth and capital, right? Like I feel like we have achieved a really good level of success as a business. And what I'm trying to do every year is maintain, deepen, develop what's good about what we're doing, support other people, continue supporting my family, and maybe just slightly grow so that we can also build more cool things. My vision is not like, I don't really care about having wealth in the world. What I care about is if I have any success on a financial level, what can I build with it? What can I create with it? And so we spend a lot, 2 years ago, we built the community herbal medicine garden, which we now host free garden gatherings through every month throughout the summer. So people come and harvest medicines and study plant medicine and literally just take medicine from our garden that we make. And all those events are free. We just started hosting regular meetups in Minneapolis for free. Where do I pull the money to fund those events, to rent the space, to get the cookies, to blah, blah, blah? I just pull it right from the Kickstarter fund from last year. So what we're trying to do with what we get is to build things that we like. Like both my wife and I are, I guess we're probably as materialistic as any other person, but we really aren't the kind of business owners that are interested in unending expansion of wealth. What we're interested in is having success so we can build cool shit. Like that's really who we are. So, and what we build, we try to make sure is always accessible so that people who have very little can come and do whatever it is that we're creating and providing, as well as people who have money. And our model is like, if you do have money, please use our sale rates. Please use the normal pricing programs that we have. And we trust people to make that choice. And then people who need help, we trust them to use the need-based tuition or to come along and ask for one of our scholarships to some of the other programs we have. And that's how it happens. It literally is that simple. And we have seen nothing but slow, steady, progressive growth over the years through this model in terms of the community that we've built. And we feel very happy with the way that we do this. But every year, it does mean that I have to come on and ask people who, if you believe in this model, if you get something good from it, then consider pitching in a $5 donation, a $10 donation, whatever. That's how it ends up being successful. Okay, so the gifts that are available, we have the Astrology of 2025 calendar. That's going to be a $25 donation, and it allows you to track the transits on the year that I will be exploring on the YouTube channel. So it's kind of nice. You get a preview of where we're heading on the channel. We have 279 backers who have picked that up already. The Astrology of 2025 video is an exclusive, in-depth look at all of the major astrological transits of 2025. I'm not releasing that on YouTube. 106 backers have picked that one up at the $50 donation tier. The Oracle Speaks is my new book. And this is a book of stories. It is a collection of stories that are all about how a human being comes to start talking to an oracle. And it's my own story. But the stories are crafted in a way to be really universal so that you almost feel like it's your story too. It's everybody's story. Anyone who has a connection with an oracle can relate to the stories in these books, in this book. And so that book is going to be released in print form, probably in a couple of years. It'll be finished in 2025. I'm 7 out of 12 chapters in, working on the 8th chapter right now. And you get those in text and audiobook format, so you can listen to them in advance. You're getting the first draft, essentially, the first polished draft. Then there'll be an editing and a rewriting process. And what we'll do then is put it through the publication process, so eventually be able to pick it up. But in the meantime, you can listen to it or read it in advance as it's coming out chapter by chapter. That's the $75 tier. 36 backers have picked up that book. Year ahead horoscope video. This 150 backers have picked up already. For a $100 donation, you get about 8 hours worth of content on the year ahead. It says 6+ hours. It ended up at about 8. So 8 hours of horoscopes for the year ahead. This is all 12 signs. You get all 12 signs. In previous years, we only did, you could pick your sign and then I'd send you the individual video. This year, I just did one talk for all 12 signs, and it's about 8 hours long and breaks down all the major astrological transits for your sun or rising sign for the year ahead. That's a $100 donation. We've had 150 backers pick that up so far. Then we have master classes. These are master classes that came out this past year in 2024. So you could pick up an individual master class. They're about 8 to 10 hours of content each. We have one on the fixed stars, one on the transits of the outer planets, one on the lunar nodes in ancient astrology, and one on the archetypes of the astrologer, which was surprisingly one of my most popular master classes that I've ever done. It's all about the types of astrologers that are out there, all the different archetypes of the astrologer, and how to look at your birth chart to help you determine, which type of astrologer you might be. Anyhow, that was really a fun masterclass. Astrology for Complete Beginners course at the $199 donation is a great deal on our Astrology for Complete Beginners audio video course. So this is the only pre-recorded content I have. It's about 10 hours worth of content introducing you to astrology. So if you or someone in your life is like brand spanking new to astrology, you just want a little orientation so you know what the heck is going on, this is about 10 hours that'll set you up for the first year course or for just a deeper understanding of what you're listening to when you consume astrology content. The Ask 3 Horary Questions is a reading service. You can email me 3 times, anytime you want in 2025 with individual horary questions that are specific predictive questions, yes or no in format. And then I email you back with the chart and a response. So for example, will I get the job? Will we get into a relationship? If I move here, will I be happy with it? That kind of thing. So these horary questions, a good package deal of 3 readings on the year, you can send me for $200. That's $100 off. You're basically getting, you're getting the 3rd reading free because they're each $100 on my website. So you're getting 3 horary questions for $200 when if you got them on the website, that would normally be $300. So a really good deal. Then we have our archived masterclass bundles. So you can look at the 2023 or 24 masterclasses that are archived. That's going to be about 40 hours worth of content in the bundle with 4 different masterclasses in each bundle. You can look at those there to see the different names of the classes that we provide in those. The Roots and Spheres Moon Circle meets next Thursday. We meet under new and full moons. We break down the astrology for the month ahead in group. We outline rituals, working with gemstones, working with plants for each cycle. So each cycle is like a ritualistic, experiential journey that we take as a group, and then we process and reflect together. You don't have to know a lot about astrology. This is not an astrology class. It's an experiential, ritualistic moon circle that's meant to make your connection to astrology more embodied. And my wife and I lead that along with Saffron, who is like our NightLight's like executive director. And she and myself and Ashley and some other friends that are part of that program get together and lead you through each moon cycle in community. It's a great way to make the astrology more personal. Work with plants too and gemstones if you like that kind of thing. 2025 Masterclass series is going to start in January. We are exploring all of the houses connected by trines. This is going to be a really in-depth look at the houses that are philosophically connected through trines, like house 2, 10, and 6, or house 12, 8, and 4, all connected by trines and in philosophical meaning. We're going to be breaking down those connections in each Masterclass series in 2025. The Masterclass series is greatly discounted through the Kickstarter. Herbal Foundations Apprenticeship Course, year 1 and 2, if you want to study with Ashley in her programs. They are fantastic online courses in astrology, in herbalism. And then at the bottom, you'll find our best deals, which are the course bundles. So the normal course early bird cost is $12.99. If you attend one course, that goes down to $900. So you save about $400 off the early bird sale that we run. The normal course cost is even more than that. It's like $1,500 or $1,600. So a really good savings on even taking just one of our programs. If you take 2 of our programs, say year 1 and year 2, it goes to $1,500 for 2 programs. It's $750 per program. So now you're getting to 50% off territory. And then when you get to the 3-course bundle, $1,700, now you're getting closer to 75% off. And that's the 4-class bundle where you can get all 4 of our year-long programs for $2,000. It's $500 each. That's a super good deal. We only run it once a year through the Kickstarter. And you can also use those class passes on Roots and Spheres or any masterclass bundle you want, including the New Year's or previous years. So that 4-class bundle can get you a lot of really good content through our school. Okay, well, that takes us through all of the gifts that are available through the Kickstarter campaign. Remember, the link here is in the comment section of the live stream. It's also over on the website, nightlightastrology.com. Don't forget to like this video too. That helps us. Hey, we just crossed the 1,200 backer mark. That is fantastic. We're at 1,202 backers. Let's see. What do we need? 1,937 minus 1,202. 735 backers that we still need. We need between now and New Year's Eve. That's a big push. Honestly, like we need to, that's why I'm here today, right? We need to see what we can do to drum up as much support. If we can get to 1,350 backers today, I think we're going to be on track to finish and meet our goal. But we'll see. We'll see how we do here. All right. So anyway, now that I've pitched the Kickstarter, I would love to open up for some Q&A. Thank you to everybody who's donating, by the way. I see more coming in as we go. That's really, really appreciated. Any and every donation counts. Even if you can't do a reward level, throw in $5. It helps us. It really does. Okay. Now, let's see here. If I'm not mistaken, it's a good question for Q&A, but I believe you can gift a class from within your bundle as well. That's right. You are welcome to take one of the classes from your class passes and gift them to someone. We are totally fine with that. If you want to give it as a gift, feel free. You can use 2 of them for yourself and 1 of them for someone else if you want. So yeah. Mary Wolf says, can't wait for Roots and Spheres to start. Just a few more days. That's right. Yeah, it'll be Thursday of this coming week that we meet for our first moon circle of the year. Okay. Here, we get into some Q&A now. Let's see what questions you all have. Can you speak on what effects a bad house has on a benefic place there? I have Venus-Jupiter conjunction in the 6th. I'd say pleasure is actually difficult to feel. Yeah. It doesn't just have one effect, right? So it's really hard to describe a benefic in a difficult house, like house 6, 12, or 8, for example, were really the unanimously, like ancient astrologers unanimously agreed that the 6th, 8th, and 12th were the most difficult houses. Now, a benefic in those houses can mean so many different things. Okay, for example, Jupiter in the 12th can mean you're going to a rehab facility to recover from alcoholism. It's not such a bad thing, right? Jupiter in the 12th could also mean that your guru is sleeping with people in your spiritual community. The 6th house Venus can mean difficulty with respect to love relationships, pleasure, pain or difficulty that makes it hard to experience pleasure would certainly be a Venus in the 6th house kind of delineation. But it's one of many possibilities. And there are also some really nice things like Venus in the 6th in Capricorn. I've seen, and I think I used this example in the recent webinar I taught on the 6th house. I've seen that in the chart of Venus in Capricorn in the 6th as a metal worker, like someone who made jewelry. So there are so many different ways to read a benefic in a difficult house. Often you can't like overlook or totally whitewash the difficulties of a benefic in a difficult house. You want to always consider what they might be because they usually will show up in one way or another. But that doesn't mean that there won't be some really beneficial or constructive or enjoyable manifestations of a benefic in a difficult house. So we have to always take a well-rounded archetypal look without being overly positive or overly negative, just realistic about what the environment tells us, what the planet, what the sign, the dignity of the planet is telling us, and then come up with creative delineations. And if you're speaking with a client, of course, you always want to anchor what you're saying in a conversation that will validate what their experience has been rather than, you know, kind of trying to dry read things. Astrology is really not meant to do dry readings. I mean, you can, but it's really not the point. Okay. Yeah. These are such good questions. Shauna says, I've taken years 1, 2, and 3. I'm currently in Horary. Absolutely love these classes. Thank you. That's a really nice comment. Really appreciate you. Can you speak on zodiacal releasing and how you interpret it? Well, zodiacal releasing is an ancient Hellenistic timing technique that is very similar to the Vedic dasha system, and probably may have been derived from the Vedic dasha system or the dasha system from it, or they just share similar roots somehow. But the idea behind zodiacal releasing is that the life can be broken into chapters that are that each last a certain amount of time and are governed by a specific planet. And the amount of time is related fundamentally to certain astronomical numbers and features of the planet. For example, the number, Jupiter has the number 12 associated with it, right? So you can look at a Jupiter cycle and you know that it's going to be in zodiacal releasing 12 years, 12 months, like that, 12 days. So the number 12 is unique to Jupiter because its synodic cycle is roughly, or its cycle through the zodiac is roughly 12 years. So something like that is the idea. So you're looking at a way of dividing your life into time periods that moves through the zodiac as well. So, for example, you'll release from a starting point in the chart. Say you release from Cancer. You will start off in a Cancer period for your life that's 25 years long based on the moon. And then those 25 years will be broken down into sub-periods. And the sub-periods are also reflective of planetary periods, but in lesser increments. For example, the first period in a Cancer level 1 Cancer 25 years, the first period of level 2 will be 25 months, right? And then after those 25 months are up, within the 25 years, you'll move on to another planet ruling a sub period. So it's like nesting dolls. There's like major periods, and then within the major periods of say 25 years or a Saturn period of 30 years, you're going to have sub periods of 12 months or 8 months or 2.5 years or something like that. So you end up having a way of looking at time broken into chapters, and then each chapter bears resemblance to the planetary ruler and sign that's associated with that period of time as well. So, like you could be in the Vedic dasha system, like you might be in a Mars period for 15 years, or you might be in a Venus period for 8 years or something like that. Zodiacal releasing is the same way, where you're looking at periods of time, big, huge chunks of time, as resembling the influence and qualities of a certain planet that is then rooted in the karmic context of your natal chart. And then you're breaking down sub-periods within that major period that are also ruled by planets and their locations in your chart. That's a simple way of explaining what is a very complicated timing technique that I teach in my year 2 program. It takes me 3 classes to teach it, so. And then I have a whole master class that's like 10 hours totally devoted to zodiacal releasing, because that zodiacal releasing, I called that masterclass Zen and the Art of Zodiacal Releasing, because there's a kind of mindset that we don't teach people that they need to have when using zodiacal releasing to be effective. A lot of people fail to find the relevance of the technique or success with the technique because they're not taught how to think about the technique properly. And in my humble opinion, zodiacal releasing is one of the hardest timing techniques to apply with success consistently. And it mostly stems from people not being taught how to think about what they're doing. And once you know how to think about what the technique actually is and how it can be used, you're going to have way more success. We talk about that at length in my second year program, because every timing technique has a different way that it needs to be thought about so that it can be applied correctly. It's sort of like, you could be really good at playing a certain style of music, but unless you play that music in the right setting with the right people in the right mood, it's not going to fit. And we don't teach people how to think about timing techniques in that way, because there's just a lack of being taught. We're not teaching craft, we're teaching technique. And the application of technique is what we might more broadly call craft. And craft isn't broadly taught. Techniques, history, and maybe some philosophy are taught. So at NightLight, we spend a lot of time talking about craft, because as an astrologer, my fundamental thing has been I'm a practitioner. So I've seen, over 13,000 clients in my career. And with that, when you see that amount of clients and you apply techniques day in and day out in many different settings and situations and scenarios, you end up thinking about astrology through the lens of craft, not technique. And so NightLight is very experiential, very much rooted in a practitioner way of thinking, not a like historical technical way of thinking, although that's important as well. But yeah. So anyway, zodiacal releasing is something that's really hard to teach people without teaching us how to think about it and how to think about it through the lens of craft. Anyway, how much does zodiacal releasing feature in your practice? Not a lot. I have very specific uses for it and very specific ways that I teach people how to use it so that it will be most effective, because it's a technique that if you try to apply in every situation for every purpose under the sun, it will not work. And there's reasons for that. It's not just a technique that's hit or miss. It's only a technique that's hit or miss because we don't know how to think about it. And when we know how to think about it, then we know when to use it. But when you know how to think about it and you know how to use it, you'll find that you don't use it all the time. There's specific situations where it will make sense to use it. It's really hard to like abstractly explain these things because, again, in my programs, 10 hours worth of a masterclass talking about it, or 3 classes in my year 2 program talking about it. It takes a while to articulate. It's like an easy thing I can explain super quickly. Would you be willing to do a live horary reading in place of a live birth chart reading? Sure. Yeah, that'd be fun. We could do that today. Let's see here. Be cool. Donate $1 to the Kickstarter and keep this channel free. Thanks, Monique. That's awesome of you to say. Let's see. We've had about 3 or 4 more donations come in. Much appreciated. What does nodal reversal mean and how can we prepare for it? Well, first of all, I don't recommend preparing for astrological events outside of staying consistent with the things that you do to be the best version of yourself or to be a better version of yourself, right? Or, you know what I mean? Like, what are your spiritual practices that keep you grounded, that allow you to integrate, flush, digest, heal, purify through life's ups and downs? How do you take care of your body? How do you take care of the temple that houses your soul? Are you sleeping right? Are you eating right? Do you drink enough water? Do you exercise? Do you walk? Do you let oxytocin flow because you cuddle with your puppy or your kids or your friends or your spouse, or you have a group of friends you hang out with that, that connection means something. It's like care for the soul. If you care for the soul, you'll be prepared for every single astrological transit. It is not more complicated than that. And even if you don't, the universe is a place of such grace, such beauty, such care, such compassion. Even if you don't care for yourself, I would say that the universe is caring for you. And you'll find that in the scope of a full life, we get glimpses of that. There's moments where we understand that and then we can just forget it. So like, don't stress about the prep part. Just live your life. Use astrology to reflect upon and engage with what's happening rather than prepare for it like it's, an end-level boss in Mario Brothers or something. So just my advice. Now, a nodal reversal, though, is really interesting, right? Because first of all, it depends on what point of view we're taking. Are we looking at it from the evolutionary point of view? Or are we looking at it from ancient Hellenistic, Indian? So there's options when it comes to how we interpret the symbolism of the nodes, and that will dictate largely how we interpret a nodal reversal. Let's just broadly speaking use the idea that the nodes of the moon refer to a kind of karmic river that's flowing through our chart. And what's really important about this karmic river from my perspective, utilizing the ancient point of view from both Vedic and Hellenistic sources, is that this river's orientation, its flow, its current, can shift directions and does throughout our lifetimes. So the North Node will be this karmic pull into materiality, into experience, into what entangles us, what we desire, what we want out of this experience in life, what we're trying to embody, seek, have, our ambitions. There's something very hungry and not satisfied. Oh, I want this. I got to try this. I got to do this. I got to become this. I got to work on this. Those are the inclinations that we associate with the North Node. The South Node has this way of reaching points of crystallized understanding about previous experiences that also allow us to detach somewhat from the ambitions of the world. Both are valuable. They're two different paths that we learn and live by spiritually, into the world or pulling back from the world. So let's say, for example, on a day where I really had a bunch of plans I wanted to do, but my kid got sick, hijacked the day, the other one's being a jerk, my wife's not in a great mood. She's dealing with something she's going through. And my good vibes and all the plans I had for myself for the day just got submarined. Okay. The South Node of the moon, metaphorically, is that little piece of me that says, you know what? I let go of those ambitions. It's fine. I can find happiness in just my very being. See, the South Node is associated with moksha, which means liberation from the entanglements of the material world. But that doesn't mean the material world is a bad place, right? So on the other hand, there might be a day where the wind's at my back, or even if the kids are sick, and there's something going on, and it feels like there's things thwarting me. The other thing might be, well, I don't care. I'm not going to let anything stand in my way. I'm going to get my workout in today. I'm going to get my work done. I'm going to be a good dad. I'm going to feel really accomplished, So some days you have to let go and some days you have to engage. And these are like impulses karmically that are both part of spiritual life. The South Node is like a current that pulls us toward integrating and kind of crystallizing wisdom that we've had about experience itself that can form and shape understanding, most of which liberates us from getting overly attached and identified with the material world, which is why the South Node is associated with moksha. Whereas the North Node is like very either tamasic or rajistic in Indian philosophy, which means that it can entangle us really ignorantly in material desires that get us lost and overly identified and attached with the material world. Or it can be a source of our learning because we engage with the material of life, and we learn and live because we go out and live our choose your own adventure book story and experience things and learn and live and love. And attachment is not bad. Attachment is part of how we grow. So are we going into the world with exploration in mind, or are we pulling back, crystallizing insights, right? So the nodes in our chart are like rivers that flow in both directions all the time. And one is not better than another. One is not more necessary or vital that we go in the direction of than another. This is the way that I read it from the standpoint of ancient astrology. Now, from that perspective, it's then very important that we consider that when nodal returns happen, regular nodal returns, there's a strong emphasis on the pull of these two positions in the chart. The South Node crystallizing insights in one area, pulling back from worldly engagement through one area, engaging and moving into experience and desires in another area. And the tension between those two things will be really highlighted during nodal returns. Okay, so the priorities are flipped when the nodal return happens in reversed fashion. So let's say, for example, I've got the South Node in Aquarius in the 10th house, North Node in Leo in the 4th house. And let's say the North Node is in Aquarius in the 10th, South Node is in Leo in the 4th. I'll be crystallizing a lot of insights and reflections and understanding about experiences I've already had with respect to things like home and family. Whereas in the normal flow of things, that area is relatively new to me, or is something that takes me into the desire for new kinds of experiences. Okay, so the South Node in Aquarius in the 10th house might be the tendency to reflect upon the state of the world and humanity and have some understanding of it that also helps me to, let's say, detach from it, or there's some kind of spiritual understanding that's disseminated through my career that's sort of Aquarian, fits for an astrologer, right? So the north node in that area will say, no, there's new things I need to do in the area of career, and there's desires unresolved that I need to go into, as opposed to the normal function of the south node, which will be to gather previous experiences and crystallize them into insight that provides a little bit more space and detachment. That's that big Aquarian sense of oversight and like broad intellectual distanced understanding, right? But the north node there would then push me into new kinds of experiences in the career, new insights, etc. And so the nodes, when they flip, will just flip the prioritization. So if you have a north node in the 7th, south node in the 1st, and the north node comes into the 1st house, there's going to be, rather than having the constant gathering of personal insight, experience, and reflection upon your individual nature that helps you remain somewhat detached from entanglements, the north node in the 1st house will push you into new frontiers of self that are unexplored, that represent new desires. And the mood will not be about integrating and crystallizing understanding of yourself. It'll be about developing new experiences of yourself. So it just flips the prioritization of what the nodes are doing in the kind of like way in which they're doing them. And they're really fascinating periods. I remember when the north node was in Aquarius over my south node in Aquarius, I got really deeply invested in Reality Sandwich, this online community that was broadly speaking about psychedelics and consciousness. And I started writing for them, and it was this brand new development in my career. And it was very north nodey in that way, right? So yeah, it's as opposed to a nodal return, right, where I was stepping back from being overly engaged with my career and having kids. So having kids and developing a family was a north node Leo type of moment in my life, and taking a little bit more of a step back from how engaged I was with my career, that was just a basic nodal return. So anyway, you can kind of track it like that. I hope that makes sense. Good question. Oh, we're at 1,208 backers. Fantastic. Thank you all for the support. Mars in the 12th. Well, one of the things you have to watch for with Mars in the 12th always are the kinds of people that are going to be afflictions, sources of frustration, or antagonism that you don't necessarily see. So hidden enemies is a way of putting it with Mars in the 12th. Mars in the 12th can be people that undermine you that you are not consciously aware of. And you have to look at the house that Mars rules, the 2 houses that Mars rules in the chart to get a little bit more understanding of who that might be. For example, it could be that, if Mars rules your 10th house and is in your 12th, we have to watch for people that you work with that could be undermining you. Now, they don't have to be consciously or intentionally malicious. They could be unconsciously malicious or unintentionally harmful to you just by their influence in your life. But Mars in the 12th can be about those people that, bring a form of antagonism into your life that you can't see. Because the 12th house is a blind spot that we can't see, you always have to look at it like that, especially when a malefic is there. But on the other hand, Mars in the 12th can also be, there's this really interesting way in which the 12th house speaks to detachment from the world, and also from like the normal egocentric position. The 12th house was called metacosmios, as were all the cadent houses, which means a kind of liminal space. The 12th house is a liminal space where we usually inadvertently or unintentionally lose control or sort of lose the plot, which is one of the reasons that the 12th can be so difficult. It's like losing your hand on the steering wheel. But there are ways in which we intentionally put ourselves into those positions. For example, taking an entheogen in a shamanic circle, or submitting yourself to a silent retreat, or anything where it's like, okay, I am going to sort of step out of the world and relinquish some degree of control, go into a non-ordinary state of consciousness. What I find really interesting is that some people will find that they become particularly effective. Mars is a planet of effectiveness, meaning I can do things through my will, through action and agency, and be successful doing them. But it's amazing to me. I've seen over the years Mars in the 12th show up in people's lives when, through losses of control, through health crises, through mental or emotional health breakdowns, through, loss of control through addiction, or through through some kind of spiritual cathartic experience, they suddenly find their mojo. It's like Mars is a hidden asset in the 12th, but you have to get into some kind of 12th house world to find it. That's a beautiful thing that can happen in the 12th house. 12th house planets can be like things that are hidden, that are unconscious, that once we get in touch with, we suddenly have a more conscious relationship. It doesn't mean they never are problematic again, but it is amazing to me how you'll find people that end up being crusaders for, people who are like, I can think right now of a person I know from my childhood with Mars in the 12th who was an alcoholic, went to rehab, but is now a social worker. Okay, so he is someone who the loss of control, the rehabilitation, and the process of being lost and found again has made him an advocate and a guardian and a protector for people who are experiencing hardship. So he became a social worker through that rehab experience. And not surprisingly, it was a transit to Mars in the 12th that facilitated that. So that's a friend of mine, right? So you get the idea, right? Mars in the 12th can mean a lot of different things, but some of it can be, really difficult. And there can also be some really redeeming qualities to having Mars in the 12th. Yeah, it's a good one. Let's see here. Do Visa gift cards work for purchasing on Kickstarter? I tried to use one of the gift cards I got for Christmas that said declined. I don't think they take Visa gift cards. That's kind of a bummer. One thing that you could do, and just because we had another person do this, they used, I believe they ended up using, how do they do this? I'm going to mess this up. I want to say they put it on a credit card and then they were able to pay off the credit card instantly with their gift card, but I might be getting that wrong. I don't know. I wish we could help. Unfortunately, that if they don't take gift cards, I guess they just don't take them. But reach out to us because Saffron might be able. I bet you Saffron would know what to do with that. By the way, thank you to these people with the super chats. Like, this is so nice that you're sending the gift over here through it. We really need people to use the Kickstarter link, though. Every day I say this because it's art. Everything flows through that Kickstarter. So please do use the Kickstarter link rather than super chats on. But obviously, thank you. I don't mean to sound ungrateful. Okay. Let's keep going. These are good questions. Any questions you have for me as a content creator? Any questions you have about astrology? Let's keep going. You have the best community. What's your 11th house placements? Well, I have Pisces in the 11th. Not surprisingly, this community space of my life, I think, is really rooted in that sense of compassion and openness and sensitivity to the suffering of other people, especially socioeconomically. I grew up I'm not lying when I say this because I know I look like a middle-class dude or whatever, but preachers make like no money. And up until, I would say at least college, my family had very little money, like lower middle class, not poverty line, like just not super above it either. And so I grew up seeing a shift in terms of like my socioeconomic status has changed in my lifetime is what I'm trying to say. And so I have a great, I don't know, I just have a real sensitivity to making sure that money isn't something that keeps people from spiritual things. Because when I grew up, that was the model that I lived by, right? We didn't make a lot of money. I thought there was something that wasn't quite fair about that, considering how much work and soul and passion my dad poured into his job. That he should make so little didn't make sense to me. I feel the same way about teachers and social workers, by the way, people who have so much heart that they pour into what they do to care for other souls and stuff like that. So, and then seeing a socioeconomic shift in my life, it's just made me aware of the fact that spiritual things should be broadly accessible. I think that's probably the Pisces in my 11th. Yeah. And then depending on which rulership you use. I don't use outer planets as rulers. As a Hellenistic astrologer, I use them, but not as rulers. And then, so Jupiter in Libra is in my 6th house, which is that kind of, also that sort of sense of fairness and service orientation that's connected to community in my chart. That's the way I see it anyhow. There's challenges that have come with it too, for sure. A lot of learning, but yeah. Adam, do you still study on your own? Do you have a teacher you study under? Not at the moment, no, but to be honest, let me just tell you, this is a great question. I'm at a space in my practice where for the first time in many years, for like the past year or two, I've really been spending a lot more time on things that are very, very physical. So I was someone who, read thousands of pages every year for many, many years, and just constantly reading, and absorbing so much literature, and doing many spiritual things, hours and hours of meditation daily for many years, yoga every day, spiritual practices, shamanic circles. So it was really intellectual and sort of transcendental. And I had this shift a few years ago where I realized that there was this part of me that was really deeply neglected, and it was both physical and it was like my masculinity, but also just like my bodily identity is the way I would describe it. And so I started spending a lot more time learning and studying nutrition, learning and studying about muscles, learning and studying about physiology, learning and studying about sleep and diet. And so I've been sort of like in a more biological school the past couple of years, which I know it sounds like, well, that's a totally different topic than astrology. But at this point in my journey astrologically, a number of my astrological teachers died. And also, it's not like there's not more to learn. There's always more to learn. But it was like, I need to go study this. This is a part of my soul that if I develop and take care of, it will come to bear on my practice of astrology, of course, because how couldn't it? So I've spent more time with that. In the past couple of years, I really feel like I've been, chipping away at my own private, degree in nutrition and health and diet and physiology and things like that. And then, the other piece of it that's been really about embodiment has been music. So I've been spending a lot more time playing music. And so like, it's amazing how, but by the way, like it is absolutely amazing to me how intuitive and easy it is for me to make connections between what I'm studying and learning on my guitar and the practice of astrology. It's really hard to even, it's hard to put into words what those connections are because they're so subtle and intuitive to me, but it's about art and craft. And so I find that playing music and working out and studying and learning about the body have been, kind of where my head and heart have been at for the past couple of years. And it's a real shift for me. I don't know how long it'll last. There'll probably be a 9th house perfection year, and then I'll be in some, I'll be in some new monastery of life, just keeps moving like that. But anyway, if that can be inspiring to anybody also, that there are many ways to learn and keep growing as a person and as an astrologer, I think there are. Susan says, I've asked you horary questions about putting more emphasis on my astrology business. Answer, no. In your experience, have you seen a client ask again after time and more work and get a yes? Indeed, I have. Yeah. Horary charts to me are very rarely is a no, a never. Like if someone says, will I meet someone soon? It might be no, but that doesn't mean you'll never meet somebody. So horary speaks to the time horizon of a particular state of consciousness and a particular like time, space, and circumstance. I don't recommend asking incessantly, asking over and over again the same questions. It's a really bad thing to do with oracles in general. I think everybody knows that. But certainly give it a few years, more study, more time, more practice. Asking again, I don't think would be a bad thing if an initial horary doesn't give a huge sign of support for the immediate or imminent success of a particular pursuit or career or something. Yeah. Do you consider phase relationships like Jupiter Saturn in an opening square being a first quarter phase? Yeah, of course. Their synodic cycle can be read like a mirrored version of the moon cycle. So the Jupiter Saturn conjunction, the square, the opposition, the last quarter square, I wouldn't read them exactly like I would a moon cycle, but with some similarities. For example, you could use um, Dane Rudyard's basic phasal meanings of the moon, which are really nice. For example, a first quarter square represents a kind of individuating crisis, or the new moon is a seeding point. Like there's helpful metaphors that are rooted in the moon cycle that could be used within the cycle of Jupiter and Saturn for sure. Okay. Well, we're at 1,212 backers. We're doing pretty good. I think we need to get to 1350 today to get to get to about last year's number. That's my goal for the day. If you haven't yet donated, please consider pitching in. I'm going to put the comment in the live stream. Yeah. This is a good question. Michelle asks, thoughts on planets on the IC? I feel like the IC gets less love and attention than other angles. That's true. One of the reasons that is probably true, just my guess, is that the IC is it's less visible. We think of the ascendant, descendant, midheaven. Those are planets that are hugging visible angles. And so the IC is an invisible degree of great power and sensitivity. So if a planet is configured to it, one of the things that Manilius said that I always remember that I import to the IC as well, since they're astronomically similar, the fourth house in the IC. He says that it is not as showy, it's not as public, but it is more substantive in its support. That's interesting, as the fourth house is thought of as more substantive in its support for the life than the 10th house, which is, in a sense, more publicly visible, but it's almost like not as enduring or not as stable. That's fascinating because he sees the fourth house, Manilius does, as the base of the chart, like the foundation. So he sees it as, it's less flashy, it's less showy, but it's more substantive in support. Let me give you an example. There's a chart that I use to teach certain classes that I have in my programs. There's a woman that I counseled for many years in astrology. And she was a single mom who had Mars in Scorpio at the IC. And as I read for her over the years, and my understanding of Hellenistic astrology was developing, and my understanding of the IC was developing, I read people like Manilius talking about it. I started realizing that all of her life story, from being an first generation immigrant in the United States, and her parents, when she was in high school, going back to their country and her staying and finishing school, and then going through a marriage where she was abandoned and then became a single mother and put herself through college as a single mom, and then rose the ranks in her career while parenting two girls. At every step of the way, Mars at the IC signified the resilience that she had and the persevering, courageous, determined, hardworking qualities that were so foundational to what was making her life successful despite the difficulties. It's a perfect image with Mars at the IC in Scorpio, its own rulership. So I think of the planets at the IC as often being very substantive and foundational. You can think of them as something that's providing support. You could also think of them as something that provides some kind of challenge or adversity with respect to the stability and anchoring or foundational support of the life itself. For example, with the same exact woman, although she was courageous and persevering, all Mars qualities, the base of her life was always being destabilized. Her home was destabilized. Her marriage was destabilized. All of those things are also Mars at the IC, providing like a kind of thwarting or a form of adversity that then she's overcoming. Nice that Mars is in its rulership too, but the point being that a planet at the IC, like Neptune at the IC, could provide you with a basis of great compassion, imagination, romantic qualities that somehow keep you afloat, that are supportive. At the same time, Neptune at the IC could be the alcoholism in the family that makes it very difficult to feel like you have a firm base. But it could also be the compassion that you end up developing and the experience of addiction in the family and the recovery process and the healing that you go through that opens up a door for spirituality that becomes the foundation of your life. So you think about planets at the IC as things that can permeate the roots and foundations of your life, providing this kind of support, but also may express as that which challenges the foundations and support of the life itself as well. It's a fun way of thinking about the IC that I've gotten a lot out of in my practice, so I hope it helps. Tina says, I always thought Fedaria was much more like the Dasha system. They both are. I don't think one so much more than the other, but they're very similar. Leah says, thank you for all you do. I've learned so much from your channel and classes. I recommend them all the time to people in astrology groups. Oh, thanks, Leah. That's awesome. Appreciate you. Year 1 and 2, absolutely love it. I think you convinced me to buy year 3. Oh, good. I hope you will. We start in January with year 3. It's going to be a great class. We spend a lot of time talking about archetypal psychology and archetypal counseling so that we have a really sensitive way of approaching clients with Hellenistic astrology, which is vital because, again, something I'm very passionate about is craft. How do you actually use this for the benefit of other souls? We spend a lot of time looking at counseling and live clients in year 3. Okay. I like this comment. Don't forget to like the stream. Thank you, Sama. I hope I said that right. Yeah. I was trained in EA and while so grateful for all the wonderful things I learned there, Adam's teachings on the nodes blew me out of the water. I sobbed so much last night and felt free. That's interesting. Were you just watching one of the classes on the nodes? I'm curious what class you saw that was really life-changing for you. But I'm glad to hear that. I think when people learn the ancient view of the nodes, it can be very liberating. But I also have really enjoyed my series with Ari Moshe Wolf, and hearing him articulate his view of the nodes in a very, I think, sensitive, genuine way as well. Okay. Scrolling down, so many good questions. Aaron says, I've been using the Placidus and Koch house systems for years. I'm not used to whole sign houses. Why do you use the whole sign house system in your teaching? What is the significance? Great question. So first, let me just explain it as basically as I can because a lot can be said about it. But both Indian astrology for thousands of years and still today, and ancient Hellenistic astrology utilize whole sign houses as the most basic form of house division. Quadrant-based houses also have some very specific uses in ancient astrology, but by and large, the basic conceptual framework of all ancient astrology is in whole sign. And that's still the same in India today. So when it's not that multiple house systems can't exist or that one's right or more accurate. That's not the way to think about house systems, in my humble opinion. House systems come into play alongside of modalities in astrology. So quadrant-based house systems, for example, are absolutely perfect for use in horary astrology because the entire modality of horary astrology from the medieval era on takes place within a quadrant-based framework. And so the way of thinking about the chart and interacting with the symbolism is rooted in quadrant-based house division. But in ancient astrology, literally every level of the theory comes from a whole sign house point of view. So when you're learning aspect theory, it's rooted in whole sign. When you're learning about dignities, they're rooted in whole sign. When you're learning about aspects and transits and timing techniques, everything is rooted in whole sign. So the simple thing to say is that it's not that you just, like, most people are like, let me try whole sign and I'll see if that's accurate. You won't be able to understand your chart. You'll look at it, you'll be looking at it through a totally different modality, that is modern astrology. And you might be able to see some things, intuitively, or some things might make sense to you when you see the switch to a whole sign house chart. But unless you study the entire language of astrology, it's sort of like saying, well, I don't understand. How can I make this clear? Well, let me just put it like this. If you study Hellenistic theory in general, you'll have the entire language, all of which is rooted in whole sign doctrines, by means of which to interpret a whole sign chart. And then you'll be able to tell the difference between your whole sign and Placidus view, because you'll also start to understand the assumptions that were carried into the way you read a chart with quadrant-based houses in a modern perspective. So like, it's like a different paradigm. And unless you have like a sort of like you've gotten fluent in the entire language of ancient astrology, you're not even going to know what you're really looking at. And that's the truth. I know that people are like, well, I know enough astrology to be able to tell the difference between charts and whole sign and Placidus. No, you don't. I promise you don't. Not until you study the entire language of ancient astrology will you really know what you're looking at in whole signs. It's that different. And most people, they may think I'm crazy, but for anyone who's in the year 1 programs, the year 2 programs in the chat right now, I'm sure they can attest. Once you study the entire language, then all of a sudden you go, oh, now I understand what I'm looking at through a whole sign house chart. Is it better than a modern view with a Placidus orientation? No, it's just different. But you won't be able to understand what those differences are until you really understand the whole language that allows you to see through the lens of whole signs. And that's something that's frequently misunderstood, because people go popping off about whole signs like whole signs alone is this big paradigmatic shift. It's not. Whole signs alone means nothing for most people unless you learn all of the theory that accompanies whole signs. That's like, it would be like saying, like, go look at the Indian chart and tell me how it looks different from a modern Placidus chart. Well, come on. Are you going to tell me that you don't know Vedic astrology, right? So because you don't know Vedic astrology, switching it to whole signs isn't going to tell you anything. You need a Vedic astrologer to read your chart, or you need to study Vedic astrology so that you know what you're looking at when you look at a Vedic whole sign house chart. So the same is true for Hellenistic. It's not the same as modern astrology. And when you learn it, you'll see there's some things in common, but you have to really study all of ancient astrology to be able to know what you're looking at when you look at a whole sign house chart. Otherwise, all you're doing is flipping a chart's orientation around, but not using any of the tools that were actually meant to be used with it, right? So I hope that makes sense. Guys, donate through the Kickstarter, please. Not here. Oh, thanks, Ashley. That's nice of you. What do you think the difference between Western and Vedic astrology? Which in your opinion is more correct? I don't think that one is more correct than another. They're not objective scientific systems. That would be like saying, what do you think is more correct, jazz or blues? I mean, there's so much that we need to work on in terms of how we think about astrology itself that I see reflected in the kinds of questions that people have. Which is more accurate, the tropical zodiac or the sidereal zodiac? It's like saying, which is more accurate, a banjo or a guitar? It's like, first of all, just take note of the fact that reality has chosen somehow to include both systems, right? So let's just start there. And then start by thinking about what it is that these systems are meant to do, right? They are oracular, divinatory systems that are meant to intelligently a logos. Astrologia means the logos or the intelligence of the stars. So it is, both systems are meant to convey wisdom and intelligence through the stars about life, about our lives, about the past, present, and future, about our psychology, about divinity, about each other. That's all that they're meant to do. And so different systems have different ways of orienting and conveying those messages, that just like different dialects or different languages, right? So you don't think about one as right or wrong. Now, if you want to get into interesting discussions about the differences, I would say, for example, that Vedic astrology is deeply embedded within Vedic philosophy and yogic philosophy and Ayurveda and Indian history and Indian culture. And so that's rich. It has a whole richness to it. That's amazing. Getting to know it, though, for most people is going to be about getting to know the culture. I mean, I can tell you that when I went to India twice on pilgrimage, the experience of visiting with Indian astrologers, speaking at an astrology conference in Calcutta, going into the home of an Indian astrologer, like going to temples, getting up at 5 a.m. and going to the temple and participating in the Mangal Arti, like these are things that you all of a sudden you go, oh, this astrology is rooted in 2,000 years worth of religious cultural history that is still very much alive. And for example, in India at our conference, the local news channels were there. Many of the practitioners were doctors and scientists. You don't see the divide between the empirical and the spiritual in India as much as you do in the West, in my experience or just my observation. I don't know how true that is, but it appeared very true to me. My in-laws, my sister's in-laws, she married an Indian man, and whole family is from India, and they live with my sister. And every time I visit, I'm thankful to have some rich conversations with my sister's mother-in-law about her experience of astrology growing up in India. And again, what those conversations have kind of shown me is that, in the West, our spiritual tradition, especially because our Western tradition is mostly Christian, and Christianity has this long, complicated history with astrology. If we had the same kind of cultural religious background that India does, astrology would be more popular here. So that's just interesting to me. Anyway, I'm rambling. Hope that was a good answer. Thoughts on labeling planets' houses as benefic, malefic when mitigating factors in a spectrum of qualitative manifestations so often put all significations in a gray area? Well, they do and they don't. So I disagree with you that they're all put into a gray area. They're not. Just think about it like this. There are very basic levels at which we describe things in consensus reality as subjectively pleasing or painful. Love Christmas cookies, enjoyable. Most of the time, I think most of us would agree, as long as you have the cookie that you like, your particular type, you'd be like, yeah, I like cookies. And then you would agree that you don't like getting dumped by someone you're in love with. Okay. So is there a level at which we all tend to agree subjectively on things that we find pleasing or painful? Yes. And so there has to be a level at which the language of astrology conveys consensus level experience. And it does. Dignities, accidental, essential, houses, they convey those meanings. However, it's also true. We can hold two truths at once. We can actually do this, where we can say, that breakup, while it was painful, facilitated this other thing in my life and it became very constructive. Does that make it gray? No. I mean, on one level, maybe it makes it gray, but I don't think you have to just because you found meaning in something doesn't mean you have to sort of cancel out the painfulness of the event either. It's like we struggle with opposites, and the language of ancient astrology is all about the tension of opposites. So, is the sixth house a bad house, a difficult house, one that we often experience with pain and frustration? Yes. At the same time, do many very positive manifestations come out of such an area of life? Yes, and both things are true. And ancient astrologers were very aware of that. The language of astrology is nuanced and sophisticated enough to reflect that diversity while also holding the very basic categories of good and bad that consistently show up in life. If we don't have both, then we're not patient enough for life itself, because life itself includes both all the time. Okay. All right. Well, we are a ways in, so I'm going to switch over to do some readings now. I'm going to plug the Kickstarter really quick, and then we're going to go on. Let's see here. Wow, there are just so many. T. Susan Chang has a great quote about offering doubt as a sacrifice for the oracle. If you get an answer, you have to trust it. If you take back your doubt, then doubt is what you're stuck with. That's exactly right. I love T. Susan Chang. She came and taught over the summer for us. She is amazing, really a fantastic diviner. Okay. Sushila, one of our rock star readers on staff, says, if you're going to grab a coffee or tea at your local coffee shop this week, consider taking that money and dropping it on the Kickstarter today. A cuppa for Adam and the team at NightLight. Thank you. We really appreciate that. Thanks, Sushila. What do you believe the purpose of life is? Man, that's a good question. Okay, so here's the thing that I would say about that. And this is something that I've taken right from James Hillman. Why do we have to think about the purpose, right? Why can't purpose be plural? Why can't life exist for innumerable purposes, right? Because once we take the pressure off from needing there to be a purpose or the purpose, I think we're in a better space. Like, as soon as we start thinking about life as not having a purpose or the purpose, but life as something that includes purposefulness, that there is a way in which life can be described and experienced as purposeful, and not just one way, but innumerable ways, is a quality of reality itself. I think that is my answer to that, right? Because I don't need there to be a purpose or the purpose. I experience purposefulness, but I also don't want to be limited by it. And I don't think God wants to be limited by it either, because I just don't think God is limited by anything. Divinity, if you want to call it divinity. Is divinity purposeful? Yes. Is divinity also without any purpose whatsoever? Sure. Haven't you ever had a moment where you're walking outside and the sun bursts through the clouds and the breeze picks up on a hot day, and all of a sudden, without any purpose whatsoever, you just go, life is amazing. There's no purpose in that moment, right? And we can experience a lack of purpose as something that is actually sort of miraculous. There's no purpose when we spontaneously burst out in song. There's no real purpose for forgiving someone. That things can happen spontaneously and without purpose is sometimes very liberating. And so I think reality includes purposefulness. It also includes things that need no purpose whatsoever. That reality in God is deeper than purpose, deeper than meaning, and also includes innumerable amounts of meaning and purpose. There's just no meaning or purpose behind you look at something and it's beautiful enough. And I had this experience many times, in ayahuasca ceremonies, where something is so beautiful, there's no purpose other than the manifestation of this beauty in front of me. And there needs to be no purpose for it or explanation or deeper meaning. Just look at it. Your hair will start on fire. So, yeah. So life includes purpose, but it also is much deeper than purpose. And I wouldn't want it any other way, as far as I know. Okay. So here's how you can join for a reading. Oh my God, I'm getting to the bottom of this. Okay. So if you want to join for a reading, here's what you're going to do. You're going to email me grabbed@nightlightastrology.com. You're going to email me your time, date, and location of birth, as well as what you want to talk about. If someone would like to submit a horary question, put horary in the subject line and submit not only your birth information, but also a specific yes or no question. And I can maybe do a horary reading and demo a horary reading for you guys as well. Make sure the question is yes or no. like, will I meet someone this year, or, will I get the job I just applied for? Something that's very concrete and simple for Horary. That's the best. But also include your birth info, because maybe we'll look at your chart too. So, all right. Grabbed at nightlightastrology.com. Here is now, while I'm waiting for things to come in, we are at 1,218 backers as of the time of this reading. 1,937 is our goal. So let's subtract 1,218. We need 719 more backers. Here is the link to contribute. It's in the live stream. Come study with us. We've got class passes. You can come and study at NightLight, learn astrology in the year ahead, in the next couple of years ahead. Those class passes don't expire. Come join us in our community. $719. Yeah, we're almost there. We're almost there, and yet 719 between now and Tuesday night seems like this is a long ways to go. Yeah. Make sure you submit the question in the email to grabbed@nightlightastrology.com, not in the chat section. Myself and my partner donated today. Thank you for all you do. Thank you. Thanks for contributing. Emily says, yes, this talk on purposefulness is my daily sermon. I remember being in such states of consciousness in certain peak experiences with ayahuasca where there's no thought anymore. What you're looking at is so purposeful, so meaningful, so beautiful, and so mysterious and beyond comprehension that it just goes beyond purpose and meaning. And, our ability to like cognize and interpret and take experience and make something purposeful or meaningful out of it is something that is just transcended instantly in certain spaces and moments. So that's a part of reality that we have to keep alive and alongside of us, because it's what keeps us humble. It's what keeps us curious. It keeps us kind. How could you not? It's like kindness is easier anyway, when you look at people and whatever they're doing right or not doing right, whatever, you can just remember that their life, their holiness, their beauty is so far beyond what their purpose or meaning is, or how right or wrong they're getting it, or, because you've had this, you have a transcendental perspective. I think kindness is attached very closely to that perspective. All right, I'm going to take a look. Here's the Kickstarter link again. We got a few more backers. We're at 1,219 now. Joshua, you do know ayahuasca spelling is just dimethyltryptamine with an MAOI inhibitor, right? False. Let me educate you, Joshua. I don't mean to be a jerk, but that is not what it is. And you will know the difference if you take some time to actually experience an indigenous healing tradition that has living relationships with plants, plant spirits, and that also includes hundreds of secondary plants in the brews that are made in the Amazon. Those are the two basic ingredients in all ayahuasca brews, but there are literally hundreds of brews made from the bodies of many different plants that are simultaneously included in the brew for very specific healing purposes, or for the opening of specific dimensions within the healing space. What you're talking about is reductive empiricism trying to explain something that is a living animate tradition. That's a mistake. You should take some time to think about that. But, just my opinion. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so I'm going to go over to the all right, let's see what we got in the inbox here. So many people coming over. All right, here we go. All right. I'm going to send you guys a link to join me in the studio. And we'll see here. Okay. We're going to, just so you know, Hannah, you have a good horary question here. So I'm going to send you a link just so you know. You're getting a link coming in the email. Looks like Hannah from Virginia Beach. So link coming to you right now. I hope you'll be able to join me. Let's go on. Okie dokie. Here's another good one. Lauren D, I'm sending you a link as well. And we're going to show you guys some horaries here. This should be fun. Okay, someone last live stream got upset because I didn't have anyone who was a little bit older. So, but you didn't put your birth info. That's not going to work. Okay. It's great that you emailed me to come on for a reading, but I do need birth info, people. All right, let's see here. All right. Emily E coming at you. Was in studio, missed out last time. Michelle, thank you. I've got you. Okay, I sent out 4 or 5 of these now, so we're gonna see who can join me. Joshua says, I can replicate that same trip without the vine. My friend, no, you cannot. Go and have the experience yourself, and then you'll know the difference. Otherwise, don't talk shit until you do. All right. Let's see here. We're going to have okay, here we go. So Hannah. Hey, can you hear me, Hannah?
Hi, yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, hey, thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, let me just see here. So did you have a horary question?
I did, yes. So I'm applying for a new job and I'm interviewing for them. And I was just wondering if I was going to get it.
Yeah. Let me. Okay.
Does anyone else feel nervous in these things? Oh my goodness.
People say that, and I'm always like, well, it's nice for me to have real people. I get nervous staring at an empty camera all the time. All right. Okay. All right. Josh has been kicked out of the chat. I can't. People who are ignorant about indigenous traditions just can't stay here. All right. Let's go ahead, Hannah. Okay. And then I'm going to put up your birth chart info as well. Okay. Let me just, all right. Okay. What's your date of birth?
April 7th, 1995.
And the time?
12:33 p.m.
And the place?
Virginia Beach, Virginia.
Okay. I have you as Cancer rising. Does that sound right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay, sweet. Now, we're going to take a look at the horary first, and then I'll use your birth chart to see if we can't sort of look from both perspectives and maybe give you a little bit more insight around other transits too.
Okay.
So let me first Now, I'm going to use this opportunity to kind of, people may not know a lot about horary, so I'm going to like teach a little bit about horary as we go here, Hannah.
Okay, great.
All right. Okay. All right. So here it is. So you can see on the screen that we have the chart of the moment from my location. This is really important because horary is always a chart that's cast at the time that the diviner receives the question from their location. And then we act as a kind of intermediary for the question that the querent brings, and we have a way of assigning planets to different parts of the question and people within the question. So what we have here is, oh, the big circle's out. Let's see, here we go. Okay. So we have here Aries rising, which means that you're going to be showing up as Mars. Now that doesn't mean anything. It just is the planet that's going to represent you. Now you have applied for a job. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. So the job is going to be the 10th house ruler. We assign that here as Saturn. Now we also see that in every horary question, we typically give the co-signifier of the querent, the moon. So the moon will be representing you in a kind of broad way in the question as well. So what we do then, the most basic thing we want to look for, if we see that Saturn is the lord of the 10th house, we want to see an aspectual connection being formed from either Mars or the moon to Saturn, showing you and the job coming together. Okay. So we don't see that here. So that would typically mean, on just like level 1 of interpretation, this isn't going to be the particular job that you get. Okay. So that would be a pretty basic read of this chart, because we don't see any aspectual connection here. One thing that I would say is very promising about this chart is that the moon is just about 14 degrees from the sun at the midheaven, forming a new moon.
Mm-hmm.
So do you get this job? I doubt it, with no connection to Saturn. But the fact that one of your signifiers, the moon, is about two things that are going to happen subsequently. First, the moon is going to contact Venus in the 11th house through a sextile. That looks fortunate. It's Venus, the bearer of good fortune in the house of friends and allies. And then after the moon contacts Venus, if we go from the traditional perspective, I'm going to take the outer planets out here for a second and just kind of show you the chart without them, which is a more kind of classical horary vantage point. I'm just going to really simplify our view here. The moon, after it makes contact with Venus, the next thing that it will do will be to form the new moon at the midheaven with the sun in Capricorn. So if I had to make a prediction, do you get this job? No, but I would imagine that in the nearish future, through maybe an ally, a friend, or some other kind of meaningful connection in your life, we'll probably find a new job, a different one, because what we're seeing is the dark moon not connecting to Saturn in the 12th, right? So just doesn't connect there. And Saturn in the 12th also there's something sort of inaccessible about it. And then after that, the moon has a positive connection to Venus and then forms a new moon at the midheaven. So I would suggest that there's probably another job, not this one, that will come. So kind of keep the faith alive. Are there multiple jobs you're applying for? If this one doesn't work out, could there be a different one?
Right now, this is the one I'm really hoping for. It's the only one I'm applying and interviewing for. And would this horary chart describe the nature of why I might not get the job, or does it just kind of say the fact that I probably won't?
Yeah, it's not going to be so good at the why and more the result. The why is going to be pretty speculative. It's just a lot harder to speculate as into the symbols and read into them the why as much as it is the outcome with horary. Sometimes you can see it, but sometimes not. Like in this case, it just looks to me like there's no contact with Saturn, but there is something eventually forming at the midheaven. And I would say that bodes pretty well. So like, for example, one of the things that's happening if we look, you're about to have your Saturn return.
Oh yeah,
You're in the midst of that, right?
I
And then,
am.
yeah. And then if we look at your chart, you'll notice that you're going to get Venus stationing to turn retrograde pretty much right on Mercury in your 10th house and the midheaven in March. Mercury will then station on natal Mercury in the 10th and retrograde as well. So you have 2 retrogrades in your career house in March. And then after that, you are going to see that Neptune enters your career house at the end of March, followed very just before that. There's also a solar eclipse. You can kind of see the moon and sun in the 10th. This is going to be, if I back this up one more day, there's a solar eclipse that's happening right on your midheaven in the end of March. And then Saturn enters your 10th house by the end of May. So to me, this would be a good indication from the transit standpoint that something is going to shift pretty dramatically with respect to career March through May of this year, unless you were going to be starting this job then. And then maybe the horary is wrong. That's a possibility. I'm not always right. I'd say I have a pretty good batting average with horary. It's not always right. But I would guess that the horary is saying it's not going to be the job you think it is. It's going to be something else. And these retrogrades and these big shifts, the solar eclipse in your career house, all around your midheaven, by the way, from March to May, will probably bring something remarkable, but maybe not something you're imagining just yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that is how it works. But here's what you need to do now, Hannah. You need to email me and tell me how things go, because it's really vital when you do horary that you get feedback so that you can refine your approach. So like, let's say I got that wrong, then I would want to go back and really look at the horary and be like, okay, what did I underestimate here? This chart was maybe showing you get that job, but it doesn't start till March or something like that. Then fine. Then we'll go back and look at it. So you keep me apprised of the situation.
Okay, I will. I have my second interview on January 14th, so
Okay.
I'm really hoping I get it, but
Yeah.
we'll see what happens.
Well,
Yeah.
and good luck. And remember that don't let my judgment of the chart, which is not always right, don't let that stand in the way of being hopeful about it. Okay.
Okay. Thank you
All right.
so much for your time.
Yeah, you bet. Have a good day, Hannah.
Okay, you too.
Bye. Okay. Okay. Let's see here. Okay, Michelle. Hi, Michelle.
Hi there.
How's it going?
It's all right. It's good.
Good. Did you have a horary question?
No, it was a birth chart,
Okay.
kind of a year ahead, see what shows up.
Sure. Let's take a look. Michelle, what is your date of birth?
August 29th, 1988,
Time
10:15 p.m.,
and place.
Fort Worth, Texas.
Okay. Okie dokie. I'm going to put your chart up on the screen. I look Aries rising. Does that sound correct?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
perfect. All right. All right, perfect here. All right, so tell me what is on your mind these days, or like what we could look at that would be most useful. I know you said you're ahead, but maybe give me a little bit more about what's going on in your life.
Well, it feels like, a lot of things have been pinging off lots of parts of my chart for the last year and still into the next year. Like between all the Aries eclipses now going into my nodal return and Mars going back and forth over my Venus. And it's sort of like all over the place. And it's hard to kind of coalesce it into maybe some meaningful points because there's so much going on.
Yeah, totally. What do you do for a living?
I am an herbalist and I have an herbal product. I make herbal products and I have a online shop.
Oh, awesome. That's cool. You get along with my wife really well.
Yeah. Follow her too.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay. Let's see here. All right, so just kind of scanning a few things here. So, like, tell me right now, like, are there any specific hopes that you have, like specific things that you're kind of on your mind or hoping for in the next year or two?
Oh yeah. The bigger ones is more my husband's career to kind of improve the situation. It's kind of been one crisis after the other for the past 6 years, and really hoping to get out of that. And a lot of that is related to he's the primary breadwinner. So, and my job came out of a realization that it was time to try to help out in any way I could with that. But he is still, for the foreseeable future, the primary breadwinner. But hoping that we see progress in our, I guess, material circumstances, home circumstances.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. So what I think we should focus on then is the ingress of, let me put up a bi-wheel really quick here so I can show you. The ingress of Jupiter into Cancer is going to be a good one for you. All right, let me just put this over onto the other screen so I can have some space. Now let me show you this one. So when we look at this chart here, you're going to see that, oops, let me move this forward to June of 2025. All right, so in June of 2025, you're going to see Jupiter enter Cancer and move into the 4th house. Now, the reason that this is significant is that you're talking about the intersection between home, family, money, support through spouse, right? And that's embodied by Venus, who rules both your 7th house of marriage, your 2nd house of money, and is located in the 4th house of family. Not surprisingly, there's a little bit of sensitivity, maybe a little insecurity around there with Venus and Cancer. Need things to be safe and to feel a certain way. Pretty normal. Venus is also really close to the IC. If you were in the Q&A, we were talking about the IC earlier, and here we go. So you'll see that Venus is at the IC in your chart within 3 degrees, which means that you do rely on marriage, and the connection between marriage and money, home and family is a foundational part of your life, right? So, which can also mean that there's some sensitivity around that point, as I was talking about earlier, right? Now, what we want to see for the growth and development of that energy is Jupiter exalted in the sign of Cancer to come over the IC in Venus. This is going to be a particularly auspicious period. So we see Venus coming over the IC September of 2025. And then we're going to see Jupiter get all the way up to Venus there by the end of September. And then Jupiter's going to station here and turn retrograde pretty soon. Let's see here. It gets to about 25. Yeah, so it retrogrades by like mid-November. So you go September through November, and you have got Jupiter within the 3-degree engagement range of the IC and Venus that whole time. Then we're going to see the retrograde. Let me push this forward by some weeks. And the retrograde will then take Jupiter back over those places, which may be a period of refining, revising, or a little bit of shifting around the first, let's call it the first manifestations of Jupiter on the IC and Venus. We see that taking place all the way through January. And then Jupiter's going to station at 15 degrees within 3 degrees of the IC in March, mid-March. And then it goes forward, comes over the IC again in late April of 2026, and then back over Venus by May of 2026. Okay, so after that takes place, I think that period there, if that you stretch it out, that's from September all the way till about May. You have a Venus return in there in early June, so that's a really auspicious window for us to see things like an improvement of conditions with respect to earning money, marriage, spouse's career. And is that your son? I wasn't looking, and then I just caught him coming out of the picture. Hello.
Oh yeah, that's my youngest.
Oh, that's sweet.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I think that this period, what you'll find, if you're waiting for an augmentation around money, career, your spouse's career, things like that, that you'll find that this is a pretty supportive window. Um, you know, one of the things that is also really interesting to me is you have the Mars and Moon in Aries in your first house. You had a Mars retrograde in the first house too. That's going to be getting activated by Saturn. Uh, I One thing that there's a lot of things we could say about that transit, but I'll keep it simple and say something that I think is maybe the most optimistic thing we could say about that, because that could be a difficult transit. When you're a Moon Mars woman, you're probably someone who's both really maternal, but also sort of entrepreneurial, like the protector, warrior, goddess, mother of home and hearth, but also kind of like an independent minded woman who may need to have her own business, her own space in life, and an allotment of your own power and authority is really important for the Moon and Mars in that first house, especially with the Mars retrograde. Sometimes people with Mars retrograde in the first house, my daughter has it in her first house, will struggle to build and develop the confidence and the sort of self, what do I want to call it, like the motivation or the courage or the power of your own will and way. And with Saturn coming over, I also wonder if in the next year there's going to be opportunities to develop more of that, especially if you feel a little held back or a little stuck. So the other interesting thing that I wouldn't count out here would be more of your own career and work taking off. Saturn over Mars over the Moon will often grant this tremendous power of determination, focus, discipline, and consistency with respect to things that are about you,
Mhm.
So there's going to be a Jupiter-Saturn square between those two planets, Jupiter in Cancer, Saturn in Aries in June of 2025. So I wonder if both things might not be emphasized somehow.
Yeah. And what's extra fun is my husband's second house is Cancer, and that's where his moon is too. So it's like we're both getting that activation with Jupiter.
Yeah. That is, I think that's fair to say. You're also in a year where eclipses are going to start coming, they're coming through your home signs. It's a nodal return year. So in the 6th and 12th, a little bit of adversity. One of the things that can happen too is like when we're facing adversity, okay, well, Jupiter, I might be having a little bit of a difficult year where I'm working through some things personally, but Jupiter over the IC and Venus, well, my spouse is able to provide more support than usual. And so I can take a minute for myself if I need it. That might be another benefit of the year ahead.
Oh yeah, that sounds good.
Michelle, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank
I really
you.
appreciate it. Yeah. Take
you.
it easy. Hey, have a good day.
You too.
All right. Very cool. All right, let's see. Oh gosh, you guys are having quite the discussion about Josh. Let me just say something about that so that you guys know how I feel about it. I'm someone who deals with trolls, whatever you want to call it. I'm not saying he's a troll as a human. I'm just like that trolling attitude and commentary 24/7 year round. Like what you guys don't see is that we curate the comment section every day from people who are hateful, who are bigoted, who are prejudiced, who are trying to sell cryptocurrencies. So it's for me, like my sensitivity to people that are walking a fine line between being a jerk and maybe saying something that I don't fully agree with is pretty well developed at this point. So I will just say that when I see someone that's starting to say that there is no difference between the context of an indigenous healing tradition and the manipulation of chemicals that he can make in his basement, first of all, there's so much ignorance in that. Personally, that's based on like my beliefs and values. I find that to be not only offensive, but deeply ignorant. So that's my subjective value. And as a content creator, if I like disagree with someone and then they keep pressing and pressing, and there's what to me is something that is rude and ignorant I will just eliminate it. I've over the years, I have found that if there's someone who's walking that fine line and they're being disruptive and saying things that are both ignorant and untrue, that I'll just kick them off of the feed. And I don't have a problem doing that because I have walked the path for 15 years of doing this and of seeing people who I have a pretty good sense of when someone is on the, if someone is on the fence as to what, like, are they about to be more of a dick than I want to deal with, right? So that's just, and it's a subjective thing. Like, I don't mean to be a jerk. Like, he's welcome to his opinions, even if I think that they're completely off base, right? He's entitled to that opinion, but not in my stream. That's the point. And I do get to control the narrative on that level. If I find that someone is saying something hateful, I delete it from the comments section. If I find that someone is saying something that's just so wildly untrue and offensive, then I take them off the channel. And that's what I do. But anyway, I do understand that, like, it's like when you see someone getting kicked out, it's like, oh, I don't want anyone to be kicked out or ostracized or whatever. So, all right. So let's go ahead and we're going to bring on Lauren next. Hey, Lauren. Can you hear me?
Hi.
Oh, you're mute. Oh, there you are. Okay, perfect. Did you have a horary question?
I did.
Okay, what was the question again?
The question was, will I have another baby?
Oh, yeah. Okay, that's a good one. That's a good one for horary. You have one already?
I have two. They're 7 and 10, but I've been divorced for about 5 years and I'm remarrying. So we're in that place of, do we start all over or just like kind of enjoy that our kids are big now,
Yeah, totally. Okay, let's see here. So, now I always like to ask people, and you don't have to answer if this is too personal, but are you guys trying right now? Or are you thinking of trying down the road, or?
Yeah, we actually did try. We had a miscarriage about a month ago.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
We got really excited about it because we have 3 boys together and it was a little girl. And so, it was a bummer, but we're just kind of like, do we try again? We just don't really know what to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's see what this horary can provide us with. And remember that when it comes to pregnancy horaries, one of the things I like to say is that the time horizon of a horary might be more imminent, right? So if it's a no, that doesn't mean forever. It might mean like not imminently, right? So it's kind of like, when you're asking, will we get pregnant? What you're really asking is, well, we're trying right now. We're going to try again soon. Will it happen soon? And the oracle kind of picks up on that and says, like, not right away. So because I've seen enough horaries where a pregnancy might not be imminent, but it comes later. So just remember that. Let's take a look at the horary chart. Okay, so I'm going to highlight you in the chart, which is going to be the ascendant ruler Venus, and then the moon. And so what we want to see is a connection with the 5th house ruler, the house of pregnancy, which is the sun. So what we see in this chart that's really promising, and remember, this is basically a reiteration of the previous horary. We're just not a lot of minutes later. Okay. So what we see here is the moon sextiling Venus and then going into the conjunction with the sun. So do we see an imminent, unprohibited connection between one of your signifiers and the sun? No, because your signifiers are Venus and the moon, and they're coming together in a sextile first. But then the moon carries the light of Venus into the conjunction with the moon across the sign boundary. So there's an eventual conjunction with the sun and the moon, which one of the traditional meanings of would be conception. The sun and the moon together is like an image of conception. So I would say that this chart is saying yes in time. The moon has to cross a sign boundary. It's a good, 14 degrees away. So the imminence is what we have enough to say yes, but the timing is a little vague because it's a ways away. So if I had to guess, we draw out the number of degrees, 14 degrees, maybe 14 months, 14 weeks, something like that. So those are symbolic uses of timing in horary, by the way, that are not always super accurate. So what I want to do now is just say, yes, I think there's going to be an eventual pregnancy based on the conjunction of the moon with the sun that's coming in this picture. But then let's take a look at your birth chart, because I think we can probably refine this a little bit. Do you have tell me your date of birth?
6/13/86.
Time?
5:41 a.m.
And location?
Nashville, Tennessee.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to take a look at Gemini rising. Does that sound right?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Okay. Can you see your chart on the screen?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so what I want to do here is try to find a signature around pregnancy. Do I see one that coincides with 14 months out, right? Because remember what I was saying about the timing. Let's take a look, because I suspect that we indeed have one, and I'll show you why. It takes me like just a couple of seconds to, it's like what you're looking for. And this is part of what I teach in my horary program, is how the overlap between horary and natal works.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can see what we're dealing with here is trying to get your pregnancy house activated. That's Libra, so the ruler is Venus. Venus in Cancer, very fertile planet. Venus in Cancer looks like having a baby, right? Well, look, we're going to get Jupiter coming onto that 27th degree and conjoining Venus. And it's right around the time of a Venus return. This is about June of 2026. Now, June of 2026 could be a time around which you conceive or give birth, if I'm indeed right about all of this. It's a question, right? Because I'm doing my best with the horary. Prediction is always, there's like in horary, what you want to do is you want to get like 60, 70% of your charts right. And you want to be able to identify why you got the rest of them wrong. Because that's a pretty good batting average for horary. So let's say we're right. And let's say that Jupiter in Cancer coming over your natal Venus in Cancer is going to coincide with a pregnancy. Well, then we have something that's like a year and a half away from right now. But on the other hand, could this be when you're giving birth and conception comes earlier? That could be the case as well. In which case, if we go back and we look at Jupiter's initial approach, it gets to about 25 degrees, just 2 degrees off. And that's occurring, around November of 25.
Okay.
Which is, in that kind of 12 to 14 month range that the horary was pointing towards. So, like I said, horary timing is symbolic and not usually accurate compared to natal chart timing. But it gives a kind of symbolic sense of time. And there's different ways that horary astrologers have of counting those numbers. Anyhow, you can see that Jupiter is on Venus in the year ahead. That to me would be the most likely transit under which to conceive. The only other point that I could see being possible would be Jupiter on your sun in the first house. That will happen around May of this coming year. Jupiter on the sun in the first house for women is often going to result in conception. So that would be another timing. But there's several, in other words, in the next year and a half that would fit really nicely with having another baby. Another thing to consider is that in May of this year, may I ask when you had the miscarriage?
Yeah, it was December 1st. Conception on September 29th, and then the miscarriage happened December 1st.
Okay. December, what did you say it was again? Sorry.
December 1st.
Of this month?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Oh, I'm sorry. That is really rough.
It's okay.
You doing all right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm a little older, so they say that your risk for miscarriage is a little higher.
A little higher. Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. So, okay. So one of the things that I like to look for is just like, what do I see around the time of the transit that might have been difficult, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have one thing that strikes me as interesting is that Uranus is squaring the moon.
Mm-hmm.
So that can be, sometimes that's a little disruptive on the process of like carrying a child, like the gestation, the moon that represents the womb and the gestation of life in the womb, and then Uranus in the 12th being maybe a little disruptive. But what I like about this is that often it's the same transit connecting in an arc that will have different results at different stages in the process. So for example, when I was talking about Jupiter coming over your sun in May, which could be a conception point, Uranus is squaring the moon again, but this time in direct motion rather than retrograde. The retrograde motion could be part of what took back something that was growing. Retrogrades will often reverse something.
Yeah.
And so the forward motion of Uranus strikes me as really positive. The other thing is that shortly after the two planets connect in the square, Uranus will move into your first house, at which point it'll be starting to square the IC in the 4th while Jupiter's running up to Venus. That feels to me like a real shift, right? And it's if it's in the first house, it's around body. There's some signatures around fertility. So yeah, I'm just piecing together some evidence here, but the bottom line would be that I think that both in the horary and the natal chart, there's some reasons to be really optimistic, especially with the transits of Jupiter in the next year, that pregnancy would come and that you probably wouldn't be looking at a miscarriage again, but a successful delivery. I'd be very hopeful about that given all of this.
That's very cool. I appreciate all.
Yeah, you bet, Lauren. It was great to have you on and to be able to like demo some of the techniques. It's really, really cool to be able to do that.
Plug how great NightLight is. Like as a single parent, I've been a single parent for a while, and I've been going through a Saturn transit. And at some point, I decided to join the year one, and you guys have made it super affordable. So.
Oh, good. That's what we're here for. Totally. I so appreciate you. Thank you so much. Yeah, you have a good rest of your day and Happy New Year.
You too. Bye.
Okay, awesome. Okie dokie. Well, yes. Okay, awesome. So we are going to call it good here for the day. And let's see here. I'll be back on tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Central, and we can continue with Q&A and do some more live readings. I hope that you learned something good from these live readings, that it gives you something really positive, that it gives you insight into astrology, and that it helps you grow your own practice and develop your own abilities. And let's see here. One last time to plug the Kickstarter. We are at 1,223 backers, which is fantastic. Let's see. Let's do a little quick number count. So 1,937 backers minus 1,223 is 714 backers remaining. So we have a ways to go still with a couple of days left. If you haven't already contributed, please consider supporting the channel. Let's just, yeah, here we go. There is a link to the Kickstarter in the live comments. And also, let's just see here. You can find it in the replay of this video. You'll find it in the description of the video, in the comments section. You can go over to nightlightastrology.com and click on the 2025 Kickstarter link. That'll take you there. And you know what? Someone said, what happens if you don't meet its goal? I don't know. In 11 years of doing this, we've always met our goal. So I'm going to figure that out if we don't meet our goal later. I don't know what'll happen. I don't think that's going to happen, though. I really do think we can meet our goal. We don't have a ton to go. I think we can get there. So anyway, Tiffany says, contributing now. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. Adam, do you love what you do? Sometimes I get scared to do what I love as a career. You totally solidified that I want to do this. I do love what I do. I love it immensely. Yeah. And all I can tell you is that if you love astrology, just keep pouring your heart into it, because you know there's few things in life that are as clear as loving something or loving someone, right? And just like I think of my dog. She's asleep on the floor right next to me. I just love her, man. Just pure, Same thing about astrology. That's how I feel about it. If you feel that way about astrology, all best advice I can give you is just keep pouring your heart and soul into it, because it is something that just never stops giving back. It really doesn't. It is a way of experiencing life that is just so endlessly magical and beautiful. So yeah, keep going with it. All right. Well, I guess Josh, you're back. Thanks, Adam. Even though you blocked me, I'm going to make more psychedelics in my basement. You go for it, man. And well, I'm glad you came back. And you know what? From me to you, man, there's room here for you too. I just ask that you be respectful, right? Like, you can have whatever experiences you have, but telling someone else that they could have this, like telling someone else you could have the exact same experience without this entire sacred, indigenous, traditional context is not respectful. So if you're going to be here, I just ask that you can have whatever disagreement. If you feel that way, that's great. It's just not a very nice thing to say to someone else. It's very presumptuous. So, just like if you're going to be here, just be respectful of where other people are coming from. You could say, I believe that I can get the same experiences from psychedelics in my basement. I'll disagree with you, but you don't have to tell someone, hey, you didn't have to do any of that mumbo jumbo with stuff in the Amazon with indigenous people. You could have just done it with psychedelics, chemicals. That's not a respectful thing to say. You may believe it to be true, but discounting someone else's experience in an entire sacred indigenous tradition is not respectful. So if you're going to be here, you need to hold yourself to a standard. And then I'm glad for you to be here and to have disagreements. It's just how you carry yourself. That's important. All right, that's it. So you guys have a great day, and we will be back again tomorrow for more. Bye, everyone.